The human soul trembles before fear like a candle in the wind, flickering, uncertain, desperate not to be extinguished. We build our lives around avoiding it, hiding from it, medicating it away. But what if fear is not the enemy? What if it is the forge in which the strongest spirits are tempered? Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who wandered alone in the mountains of thought, who stared unblinking into the void and laughed, discovered a truth so terrifying most will never dare to embrace it. Fear is not your chains. It is your key. The key to a strength beyond imagination, a courage that does not falter, a life lived not in shadows, but in stormlight. This is not the wisdom of self-help platitudes. This is the philosophy of the overman, the one who has looked into the abyss and felt the abyss look back and did not look away. Nietzsche did not teach the elimination of fear. He revealed something far more profound, the art of wielding it, of stepping into the fire and emerging not as ash, but as steel. Most will never understand this. They will cling to their illusions of safety, their fragile moralities, their herd instincts. But you are different. You sense there is more. You feel the call of something beyond the petty fears that govern ordinary lives. So I ask you now, as Nietzsche once asked himself, are you ready to face the truth? To learn not how to escape fear, but how to command it? To become, at last, fearless? The path is not easy. It demands everything. But for those willing to walk it, the rewards are beyond measure. The year was 1889 when a broken man collapsed in a Turin street, throwing his arms around a beaten horse and weeping. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who had spent his life dissecting the weaknesses of humanity, was finally consumed by the very madness he had long danced with. Yet in his unraveling, he left behind a revelation so potent it could shatter the chains of fear forever, if one dares to grasp it. Most never will. The comfortable masses cling to their illusions like children to blankets, inventing gods and morals and meaning to avoid staring into life's terrifying depths. But Nietzsche saw through these fragile lies. He recognized fear as the invisible puppeteer pulling humanity's strings. Fear of uncertainty, of chaos, of that yawning abyss where all comforting certainties dissolve. While others built philosophies to escape this truth, Nietzsche did the unthinkable. He dove in. Through years of isolation in alpine cabins, through migraines that split his skull like axes, through the slow erosion of his sanity, he forged a path not around fear, but through it. His was no academic exercise. This was philosophy written in blood and fire, a manual for those rare souls willing to trade false comfort for true power. The secret he uncovered lies buried beneath centuries of cowardice. From the slave morality of Christianity to the herd instincts of modern society, humanity has constructed elaborate systems to avoid facing its fundamental terror of existence. But Nietzsche's overman, his ideal of supreme strength, does not hide. He transforms fear into his whetstone, letting its edge hone him ever sharper. This knowledge was never meant for the many. It remains dangerous, unsettling, capable of uprooting lives not ready for its truths. That's why Nietzsche's works gathered dust in shops during his lifetime, why his brilliance went unrecognized until madness silenced him. The world fears what he discovered because accepting it demands everything. All your illusions, all your safe little lies. Yet for those with the courage to listen, Nietzsche's voice still echoes across the centuries, whispering the forbidden question: what if fear isn't your prison, but your path to freedom? The answer waits in the silence that follows, a silence most will rush to fill with distractions, but where the fearless few find their power. Most spend their lives running from darkness, from uncertainty, from anything that might shatter their fragile illusions of safety. But Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who wandered alone through the Alps with only his thoughts and the creeping shadow of madness for company, discovered a terrible and magnificent truth. Fear is not the enemy. It is the gateway. The common man kneels before his fears, inventing gods and morals to explain them away. The weak man hides in the herd, letting others dictate what he should fear and how he should live. But the one who would become fearless does something radically different. He turns toward the storm. Nietzsche saw through humanity's desperate games. Our religions, our philosophies, even our science, all elaborate constructions to avoid staring into the abyss. We've built entire civilizations on the foundation of this avoidance, creating what he called slave morality, systems that praise meekness, obedience, and humility while demonizing strength, independence, and the will to power. But the overman, Nietzsche's ideal of human potential, recognizes these lies for what they are. He understands that true freedom comes not from conquering fear, but from embracing it so completely that it loses all power over him. This is the essence of Nietzsche's secret, not the elimination of fear, but its transformation into fuel. Consider the most basic human fear, the terror of suffering. Ordinary people spend their lives trying to avoid pain at all costs, but Nietzsche proclaimed, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." He didn't mean this as empty encouragement, but as literal psychological alchemy. Suffering, when confronted with the right mindset, forges character in ways comfort never could. The same applies to our fear of uncertainty. While the herd clings to dogma and tradition, the fearless individual understands that life's lack of inherent meaning isn't a curse. It's the ultimate liberation. If nothing matters absolutely, then everything matters provisionally. We become free to create our own values, our own purposes, our own reasons for being. Most terrifying of all is the fear of isolation, of standing apart from the crowd. Nietzsche knew this intimately, having lived it. His solution wasn't to find comfort in others, but to become so strong in his own being that he needed no one's approval. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, he wrote. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This is the razor's edge of Nietzsche's philosophy. To become fearless isn't about achieving some permanent state of courage. It's about developing the strength to walk, trembling into your fears anyway. The overman isn't fearless because he feels no fear. He's fearless because he's mastered the art of using fear as his compass, his teacher, his fuel for growth. The implications are staggering. Every anxiety, every doubt, every moment of terror contains within it the seed of your next evolution, if you have the courage to plant it. Most will never understand this. They'll continue numbing themselves with distractions, medicating their discomfort with shallow pleasures and prefabricated meanings. But you're hearing these words for a reason. Nietzsche's philosophy isn't academic. It's a call to arms. The path to fearlessness isn't found in avoidance or denial, but in the willingness to say to life's terrors, "Do your worst. Whatever doesn't destroy me will become my strength." This is why Nietzsche's wisdom remains dangerous after all these years. It demands everything. your illusions, your comforts, your very identity as you know it. But in return, it offers the only thing truly worth having: yourself, unshackled and unafraid. The question isn't whether you're capable of this transformation. Nietzsche would say you already are. The only question is, are you willing to pay the price? Most seekers come to Nietzsche's philosophy like miners panning for gold. They want the shiny insights without getting their hands dirty. But real transformation demands more than intellectual understanding. It requires what Nietzsche called living dangerously, deliberate, conscious engagement with the very fears that hold you captive. Begin with this simple but radical practice: the daily provocation. Each morning, identify one fear that normally dictates your actions. Perhaps the fear of rejection that keeps you from speaking your mind, or the fear of failure that prevents you from starting that project burning inside you. Now, consciously court that fear. Send the email that makes you vulnerable. Have an uncomfortable conversation. Take the first step toward that dream you've been postponing. Nietzsche didn't advocate reckless abandon, but strategic self-overcoming. Keep a journal tracking these experiments. Note how the anticipated catastrophe almost never occurs, and how each confrontation leaves you slightly more resilient than before. This is the will to power in action, not domination over others, but mastery over your own limitations. For deeper work, practice the abyss meditation. In moments of anxiety, instead of distracting yourself, turn toward the discomfort. Ask the question, what's the worst that could really happen? Follow the thread to its end. You'll often find the actual fear of being unworthy, of being alone, of being insignificant is far more manageable than the vague dread surrounding it. Nietzsche's insight was that we fear the shadow, not the substance. The most advanced practitioners can attempt amor fati in action, the love of fate. When misfortune strikes, train yourself to respond not with why me, but with what does this make possible? A job loss becomes space for reinvention. A heartbreak strips away illusions. Even physical pain, Nietzsche observed during his own debilitating illnesses, can sharpen perception and deepen appreciation. These practices aren't for the faint of heart. There will be days when the old fears reassert themselves with vengeance. This isn't failure, it's the process. As Nietzsche wrote in his darkest hour, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Your fearlessness won't look like the Hollywood version. Unshakable confidence and perpetual boldness. Authentic fearlessness is messier, more interesting. It's the willingness to move forward while trembling, to doubt your path, but take the next step anyway, to stand in the marketplace of ideas with your unconventional truth, alone but unbroken. This is Nietzsche's ultimate gift. Not a life without fear, but a life where fear no longer gets the final vote, where you become the author of your own values, the sculptor of your own soul. The path is difficult, the rewards immeasurable. The only question that remains is, when will you begin?